There is one clause billionaires love. It quietly changes the entire game. Most people negotiate price. Billionaires negotiate position. Most people ask, how much do I get if this goes well? Billionaires ask something different. What happens if this goes badly, and how do I still survive? That question is the difference between gambling and structuring, between hoping a deal works and designing a deal where your downside is capped, but your upside stays completely open. That is the power of asymmetric risk. Once you understand this clause, you will never look at a contract the same way again. In venture capital, the clearest example is the liquidation preference. It sounds technical, it sounds boring, but it is one of the most powerful risk-shifting mechanisms in modern finance. Here is the simple version. An investor puts money into a company, but instead of owning ordinary shares, they receive preferred shares, and those preferred shares say something very important. Before the founders, employees, or common shareholders receive anything, the preferred investor gets paid first. That is the preference. So if an investor puts in $10 million with a 1x liquidation preference, they are first in line to receive up to $10 million back when the company is sold. If the company sells badly, they recover first. If the company sells well, they can convert into common stock and take the bigger upside. That is the genius. They are not locked into one outcome. They get to choose the better outcome. Let me show you exactly how this works. You invest $10 million into a company. Scenario 1. The company sells for $8 million. Without protection, you lose most of your money. But with a 1x liquidation preference, you are first in line. You receive the $8 million before common shareholders receive anything. You still lost $2 million, but you were not wiped out. Scenario 2. The company sells for exactly $10 million. Scenario 3. The company sells for $100 million. You convert into common stock. So the clause gives you a floor on the downside and a door to the upside. That is asymmetric risk. This is not just finance. This is psychology. When your downside is undefined, you negotiate from fear. You worry about losing everything. You compromise too early. You accept weaker terms. You tell yourself, at least I got the deal done. But when your downside is capped, your posture changes completely. You become patient. You become selective. You can walk away. That is why sophisticated investors do not just negotiate valuation. They negotiate liquidation preferences, anti-dilution protection, conversion rights, redemption rights, control rights, because the real money is not always in the headline number. The real money is in the structure. Scene 5. Take Berkshire Hathaway's preferred stock positions. These structures typically include priority repayment, fixed dividends, and restrictions that protect the investor. The lesson is that serious capital rarely enters a deal naked. It enters with armor. It wants income while it waits, priority if things go wrong, upside if things go right. That is not luck. That is design. Here is the hidden trick. Most people focus on the obvious terms: price, percentage, salary, timeline, deliverables. Sophisticated negotiators focus on the clauses people skip. What happens if payment is late? What happens if the deal collapses? What happens if new shares are issued at a lower price? What happens if you are fired before your equity vests? These questions create leverage because they define the downside before the downside arrives. That is the entire principle. Do not wait for risk to appear. Price it, cap it, shift it, or walk away. You do not need to be a billionaire to use asymmetric risk. A freelancer can use it. Include this clause. Ownership of the work does not transfer until payment is received in full. That means the client cannot take your work, use it, and refuse to pay. Your downside is capped. A consultant can use it. Add this line. Additional revisions beyond the agreed scope are billed at an hourly rate. Now the client cannot turn a fixed-price project into unlimited unpaid labor. A property buyer can use it. Inspection clauses, finance clauses, appraisal clauses, due diligence clauses. These create exit ramps. They let you pursue the opportunity without being trapped if the facts change. An employee can use it. Severance clauses, equity acceleration, bonus protection. These terms matter because income is not just what you earn, it is what you keep when the relationship changes. But timing matters. You do not open a negotiation by saying, "I want all the protection and you take all the risk." That triggers resistance immediately. Instead, you frame it as standard risk management. You say, "Let's include normal protections if the deal does not proceed as expected." Or, this clause simply clarifies what happens if payment, timing, or performance changes. Or, this protects both sides by removing uncertainty later. That is how sophisticated negotiators introduce asymmetric clauses. They do not make them sound aggressive, they make them sound inevitable. The goal is not to bully the other side. The goal is to build a structure where risk is clearly allocated before money changes hands. The reason this compounds over time is straightforward. Large losses destroy the base you need to compound. If you lose 50%, you need 100% to get back. That is why downside protection matters. It does not just protect today's deal, it protects tomorrow's opportunity. The person who avoids catastrophic loss can keep playing. They can buy when others panic. They can negotiate when others are desperate. They can wait when others need immediate liquidity. That is why asymmetric risk is not just a contract idea. It is a wealth-building philosophy. The goal is not to avoid all risk. The goal is to avoid unrecoverable risk. Because the winners are not always the people who take the biggest risks. They are often the people who structure risk so intelligently that they survive long enough for the upside to arrive. So the next time you look at a deal, do not only ask, "How much can I make?" Ask, "What is my downside? Who gets paid first? What happens if things go wrong? And do I have the right to choose the better outcome?" That is the billionaire contract mindset. Win big if it works. Stay protected if it does not. Subscribe for more. And watch the next video where I show you the clauses that quietly transfer control without most people noticing.